Hey everybody, it's me, Randy Ray, at the Literate Texan here at Driftwood Ranch, and I thought I'd do something a little different and film from a different location. This is actually being filmed in my living room / bedroom here. I live in a converted 2-car garage, so it's huge. And so there's plenty of room in here for a king-size bed and also my living room furniture. So the front half of the room is my living room furniture, and the back half of the room is my bedroom furniture. But surrounding all of it are bookshelves, which should surprise no one, right? So I've been watching Steve Donoghue's bookshelf tours for 2024. I did a couple of bookshelf tour videos myself, probably about a year ago. I thought it might be fun to start again, and since most of my bookshelves are in this room, it probably makes sense to do them in here. But I'm not going to sit by the bookshelf and film from there. I've taken the books off the shelf, and I'm going to, well, I say I did it. My daughter did it for me because I'm sick, and I play the sympathy card when I can with my daughter to get her to do the heavy lifting for me. Not that it's particularly heavy. I mean, what are there, 24 books or something like that on these first two shelves. This is Bookcase number 1, shelves 1 and 2. And shelf number 1 is actually, I don't know if you count it as a shelf or not. It's the top of the bookshelf. Shelf number 2 is the first bookshelf on the bookcase. But at any rate, this is what I've got to show you, and I'll say a little something about every book, but I know more about some of these books than others, so please understand that. So first of all, this is a book that's on my TBR list. It is going to be a reread, and I absolutely love it. It is called Barney's Version by Mordecai Richler. And I came to this book as I've come to some other books through the film version, which starred Paul Giamatti. And I thought it was really excellent, but I'll read the back of the book to you here. It's a New York Times notable book, winner of the Giller Prize, whatever that is. Barney Panofsky, Canadian expat, wily lover of women. You can tell why I like this book already, because even though I'm not a Canadian expat, I am a wily lover of women. Writer, I am a writer too. That's what I do for a living. Television producer, raconteur, I'm certainly a raconteur, as anyone who knows me personally knows, is finally putting pen to paper so he can rebut the charges made against him in his rival's autobiography. Whether he's ranting about his bohemian misadventures during the 1950s in Paris, I wasn't born until 1970, sorry, his tumultuous 3 marriages, or his successful trashy TV company, Totally Unnecessary Productions, he quickly proves that his memory may be slipping, as mine is, but his bile is in full supply. But when he's charged with the murder of his own best friend, caught in bed with the second Mrs. Panofsky, Barney's version of things might not be enough to keep him out of trouble. And then there's some quotes from some reviews here. At once falling down funny, angry, and heartbreakingly poignant. Yeah, that's the way I remember the book too. Dallas Morning News. Cunningly designed for maximum suspense and buku laughs. Exuberant, Time Magazine. Vintage Richler, funny, tough, and touching. That's the San Francisco Examiner. And then Richler's aim is still deadly, with a caustic wit and Falstaffian charm. And anybody who knows me knows that Falstaff is obviously the character in Shakespeare that I was born to play. That's from the New York Times Book Review. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to getting to this one, but I don't know when I'm going to get to it because I'm involved in so many reading events this year, many of which I'm co-hosting, although you'd never know it because I rarely make videos lately. For those of you who don't know, I've been undergoing chemo, and I just finished cycle number 6, which is 18 weeks of chemo. But it's been kind of spread out because I had 4 hospital visits in the middle there too where I wasn't getting chemo. And apparently I have 3 more cycles to go. They're giving me extra cycles because I'm exceptional. But, I'll be glad to get on the other side of that. I think they say that, in another 9 weeks, I might be in remission. And then you guys will get to know the real Randy Ray, okay? This is Randy Ray, muted and on medication, but I'm much more confident and charming and witty than this normally. So the next book on that shelf, that was book number 1 of bookshelf number 1 on bookcase number 1. It's called Black Dahlia by James Ellroy, which comes highly recommended to me. Obviously, it's a crime novel. I'll read the back of it. On January 15th, 1947, the torture-ravished body of a beautiful young woman is found in a Los Angeles vacant lot. This is based on a true story. The victim makes headlines as the Black Dahlia, and so begins the greatest manhunt in California history. Caught up in the investigation are Bucky Blackert and Lee Blanchard, Warrant's squad cops, friends and rivals in love with the same woman. But both are obsessed with the Dahlia, driven by dark needs to know everything about her past, to capture her killer, to possess the woman even in death. Their quest will take them on a hellish journey through the underbelly of post-war Hollywood to the core of the dead girl's twisted life, past the extremes of their own psyches, into a region of total madness. This comes to me highly recommended. It's supposed to be a crime novel classic. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Okay, so this next book is interesting. This is The City in the City by China Mieville, which I actually really like, but I've never finished. I've started it twice. And it's really interesting. And it's hard for me to even explain it, and I don't know why I haven't finished it. It's just one of those books where I drop off. But it won the World Fantasy Award, the Arthur C. Clarke Award, and the Hugo Award for Best Novel when it came out. And I'll read the back of it to you, too. It says, when a murdered woman is found in the city of Basel, somewhere at the edge of Europe, it looks to be a routine case for Inspector Theodore Bourlou of the Extreme Crime Squad. To investigate, Bourlou must travel from the decaying Basel to its equal, rival, and intimate neighbor, the vibrant city of Ulcoma. But this is a border crossing like no other. A journey as psychic as it is physical, a scene of the unseen. With Ulcoma detective Kusum Dutt, Bourlou is enmeshed in a sordid underworld of nationalists intent on destroying their neighboring city, and unificationists who dream of dissolving the two cities into one. As the detectives uncover the dead woman's secrets, they begin to suspect a truth that could cost them more than their lives. What stands against them are murderous powers in Basel and in Ulcoma, and most terrifying of all, that which lies between these two cities. One of these days I'm going to finish it. You know, it's not one of those books where I'm reading it and I'm having to power through or having to struggle through or anything like that. I'm enjoying it when I read it. Just sometimes I get easily distracted. And this is one book that, for whatever reason, I've gotten it coincidentally distracted a couple of times. So these next three books are part of a reading project. Yes, I do reading projects, although I don't talk about them as often as Michael K Vaughan or Criminale, but I do have my own reading projects. One of my reading projects is year before last, I took note of the science fiction and fantasy top 10 novels on Steve Donoghue's list. And I believe I've only read one of those, but it was absolutely terrific, and it was my favorite novel of the year. I don't remember the name of it right offhand, but if you look back through my videos, it's probably pretty easy to find. But these next three books were on that list. I really should put all 10 books together. I don't know why I've got them separated, although I didn't buy them all at once. So this is Robert Aickman, Go Back at Once. And Robert Aickman is a famous horror author. This might or might not have been appropriate for Horror Mayhem. I don't know. I haven't gotten to it. I'll have a monthly wrap-up, which will include all the books I read for Horror Mayhem, and it was quite a few this year. I've done a lot of reading in May. But here's the back of this one. Okay, and I'm going to skip the quotes from the New Yorker and from Brian Evanson, but I'm going to read the back. Completed by Robert Aickman in 1975, and only recently discovered in his papers. Go Back at Once is a delicious, delirious comic fantasia about the joys and terrors of a life devoted to resisting conformity. I like it. I don't know if you can tell or not. I'm not a conformist. It tells the story of Cressida Haysborough and her friend Vivian, two mordantly intelligent young women fresh out of school. The pair have little patience for the company of the marriageable men they are meant to endure, nor any other bore's company. Yet neither do they possess the means to live as they might wish, together and apart from the demands of modern society. What's a girl to do? Don't ask me. But then remarkable news arrives. A great Italian poet has conquered the tiny country of Trino on the Adriatic Sea and now seeks to govern it according to the laws of music, and that's in quotes. Could this new utopia be a refuge for Cressida and Vivian? Escapist yet clear-eyed, old-fashioned yet queer, Go Back at Once reveals Aickman as a satirist and wit deserving of a place alongside the mischievous greats of the 20th century British novel, Ronald Fairbank, Ivy Compton Burnett, and Evelyn Waugh, not to mention Aickman's contemporaries Muriel Spark and Penelope Fitzgerald. So, this looks like it'll be fun. It also looks like it's going to be a real departure from the Aickman that I've read in the past. My mother had some Robert Aickman books, collections of his horror stories. I think she might have had 2 of them. R.S. Ford, Engines of Empire, forged in fire, bound by blood. And on the quote, it says, there's a quote on the front, it says, an epic setting, an incredible cast of characters. James Islington, author of The Shadow of What Was Lost. Okay, let me show you this here. Pretty cover. From an unmissable voice in epic fantasy comes a sweeping tale of clashing guilds, magic-fueled machines, and revolution. So I believe this is the beginning of a series. And if I like it, I'll probably read the series and stuff. But it's got a list of everybody in the various guilds, which are apparently very important in the setting. And there's a map at the beginning. I love fantasy novels with maps. Seems like they come in and out of fashion, don't they? Or maybe it's just that I haven't read a lot of fantasy fiction since the 80s and 90s. But the nation of Torwin is run on the power of industry. And industry is run by the guilds. Chief among them are the Hawkspurs, whose responsibility is to keep the gears of the empire turning. And that's exactly why matriarch Rosamund Hawkspur sends each of her heirs to the far reaches of the nation. Conall, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm assuming it's a made-up language. The eldest son is dispatched to the distant frontier to earn his stripes in the military. It is here that he faces a threat he could never have seen coming, the first rumblings of revolution. Tyrita is a sorceress with the ability to channel the power of Pyrestone, the magical resource that fuels the Empire's machines. She is sent to the mines to learn more about how Pyrestone is harvested. But instead, she finds the dark horrors of industry that the Empire would prefer to keep hidden. The youngest Fulren is a talented artificer and finds himself acting as a guide to a mysterious foreign emissary. Soon after, he's framed for a crime he never committed, a crime that could start a war. I can only hope that the crime was actually committed by a one-armed man. If you're old enough, you'll know what I'm talking about. As the Hawkspurs grapple with the many threats that face the nation within and without, they must finally prove themselves worthy or their empire will fall apart. Okay, it looks good to me. I'm sold. You talked me into it. I'm going to read it. Okay, so here's another one. The Starless Crown. A terrific bit of storytelling, says Terry Brooks, by James Rollins. And I believe that James Rollins is better known as a writer of techno-thrillers. Praise for Starless Crown and James Rollins. This talented storyteller moves smoothly from thriller to fantasy. A terrific bit of storytelling. Terry Brooks. Oh, here's an author I know, Jonathan Mayberry. I like his books. The Starless Crown is a bold and brilliant epic fantasy by a master storyteller! Wonderfully complex characters, shifting points of view, unparalleled world building, and a great sense of fun make this a certified triumph. You know, I'm not a big fan of the exclamation point. In fact, I consider that misused there. Exclamation points are supposed to be used when someone exclaims something like, oh my, or holy mother of God, or great Scott. But a whole sentence, like the Starless Crown is a bold and brilliant epic fantasy by a master storyteller. That's not an exclamation, even if you put an exclamation mark in the end of it. You're kind of like selling it too hard. I don't know that Jonathan Mayberry got to choose whether or not to use exclamation points there or not. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't care about my opinion on his punctuation anyway. I mean, who's the published best-selling author there? Me or him? Rollins is what you might wind up with if you tossed Michael Crichton and Dan Brown into a particle accelerator together. The New York Times. That does not make me want to read this book. No fan of Michael Crichton or Dan Brown, although I like Crichton better. Terrible Secrets, The Sweep of History, an epic canvas, breathless action. Nobody, and I mean nobody, does this stuff better than Rollins. And that's a quote from Lee Child. At least he wrote a complete sentence. It's more than he can do in his own novels, right? Again, I'm not a fan of Lee Child, so this is not a point for the book. I'm going to read it because Steve Donoghue recommended it. That's why, in spite of the quotes on the back. When I'm sitting around the campfire hearing of heroic deeds and daring do, I want James Rollins to be standing across from me, spinning the yarn. He grabs you at the beginning and doesn't let go, weaving a believably unbelievable world of magic and danger that is both terrifying and beautiful, cruel and tender. Well, there you go. A masterful storyteller across the genres, Rollins is at his best in the Starless Crown. And that's a quote from R.A. Salvatore, who is an author that I like. So, okay, Steve Donoghue says I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to beg your forgiveness because I'm a little bit sick. I'm taking just a sip of a drink because my mouth's getting a little dry. Sorry, I hope I wasn't too loud. Okay, so these next two books, these next two books, I have a 21-year-old daughter, and she came to visit me tonight, and she is just adorable. And she grew up in a bookstore because I owned a bookstore. And I'm so thrilled that both my daughters have grown up to be readers. It's wonderful. But, they like different stuff. Maddie tends to prefer reading true crime and nonfiction, especially stuff about the criminal system, and she's actually really devoted to making change to how our criminal system works and improving it. And so she's working on, right now she's working on a political science degree, but I think she intends to get her master's in social work. Now, Mary, on the other hand, has a different kind of reading that she likes to do. She likes contemporary romance, the fluffy ones that could be turned into romantic comedy movies. And I have a weakness for these books too. And so we read these together, much to the chagrin of her mother, who's a professor. But I don't think her mother reads for pleasure anyway. Wonderful woman, but doesn't read for pleasure. The first of these is called You Again by Kate Goldbeck. And this is a Book of the Month Club book. As a Book of the Month Club book, there is no writing on the back, which is fine. I really like Book of the Month Club. The prices are really good. I get a lot of books for my money there and stuff. And it does have on the inside something to read. Can they stop hating each other long enough to fall in love? I think we all know the answer to that before we read the book. When Ari and Josh first meet, the wrong kind of sparks fly. They hate each other instantly. I may start reading this tonight. I'm already sucked into it. A free-spirited, struggling comedian, Ari likes to keep things casual and never sleeps over after hooking up. Josh, a born and bred New Yorker, has ambitious plans to take the culinary world by storm and find the one. They have absolutely nothing in common except that they happen to be sleeping with the same woman. So this is modern, of course. Ari and Josh never expect their paths to cross again, but years later, as they're both reeling from ego-bruising breakups, a chance encounter leads to a surprising connection. Friendship. Turns out spending time with your former nemesis is fun when you're too sad to hate each other and too sad for hate sex. I don't know if I've ever been too sad for hate sex. I've been too sick for sex recently. TMI. As my daughter would tell me. As friends without benefits, they find comfort in late-night Netflix binges, swiping through each other's online dating profiles, and bickering across boroughs. Until one night, the unspoken boundaries of their platonic relationship begin to blur. Who could have seen that coming? With sharp observations and sizzling chemistry, You Again explores the dynamics of co-ed friendship in this irresistible romantic comedy of modern love in all its forms. So, okay, that looks like a good one. I'm going to enjoy reading that with my daughter. She hasn't read it yet. The next one is called The Last Love Note by Emma Gray. This is another Book of the Month Club book. And this is the crazy thing about the Book of the Month Club, okay? I've been getting Book of the Month Club books for years now. I think I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. And I have an entire bookcase behind me filled with them. And I don't think I've read 10% of them. I don't know why. I keep ordering them. They keep coming. And I keep putting them on the shelf and not reading them. Go figure, man. So, 2 years after losing her husband, Cameron, Kate is a bit of a mess. Lurching from one comedic crisis to the next, she does her best to navigate work, friendships, and parenting a 5-year-old without Cam's support. Oh, Cam. When a flight diversion on a business trip unexpectedly leaves her stranded in a beach town in Australia, Kate finally has a chance to process her grief. Can she let go of the love of her life and risk her heart a second time? The Last Love Note will make readers laugh, cry, and renew their faith in the resilience of the human heart, recognizing that while you may never stop loving the one you lost, you can always find love again. That's an encouraging thought, especially at my age. and in my condition. So I love the title, The Last Love Note, because I always meant to write a short story titled The Last Order of Nachos. Have no idea what it's going to be about. I just think that's such a cool title. Next up, we have More Voices from the Radium Age. I don't have a copy of Voices from the Radium Age, but I do have More Voices from the Radium Age. This is edited and introduced by Joshua Glenn. Beautiful cover art. I just love this. A Planetary Escape Pod. Escape pod, not bod. What are you, crazy, Randy? An Alien Body Snatcher. Let me just start over. A Planetary Escape Pod. An Alien Body Snatcher. An underground Alaskan city. And a war between the sexes in Atlantis. These are just a few of the outre elements you'll find in More Voices from the Radium Age. I want to read it just because they use the word outre on the back cover. A showcase of proto-science fiction edited and introduced by Joshua Glenn. This volume brings together well-known and lesser-known writers in an inclusive collection that features E. Nesbitt and Mae Sinclair, two of the genre's first female writers. I don't know, man. You don't have to tell me you're being inclusive. I mean, cool. Whatever. I should make a video about that, but I'm not going to get into it here. More Voices from the Radium Age also introduces readers to writers who have fallen into obscurity, including proto-SF pioneer George C. Wallace, the Russian symbolist Valery Brusov, and weird horror master Algernon Blackwood. And I do like Algernon Blackwood. It also includes H.G. Wells, who continued to make startling predictions in the early 20th century, and Abraham Merritt, and George Allen England, two of the biggest names in the era of the pulp scientific romance. So, Rocket Summer is coming up. It's right around the corner. And I think, given the dates on these, some of these are going to qualify for Rocket Summer. Yeah, okay. There's a bunch of short stories. The Last Days of Earth, 1901. The Land Ironclads, 1903. That's by H.G. Wells. The Republic of the Southern Cross from 1907. The Third Drug, 1908. A Victim of Higher Space, 1914. And the most recent story is by Booth Tarkington, The Veiled Feminist of Atlantis, 1926. There's quite a few more in there. So far, I haven't read any of the books on this bookshelf tour, but this next book I've actually read. Another of my reading projects is to read everything by Richard Russo, and I have almost all of his books bought. I have all of his novels now. What I don't have are his collections of short stories, and I believe he's written 2 or 3 memoirs. But this was a good book. It wasn't the best thing I've ever read by him, but I mean, this is the guy that wrote Fool's Progress, and it's pretty hard to top that. But this is titled Chances Are, okay? And it was a solid book. And I'll read the back of it to you. It says, one beautiful September day, 3 men in their late 60s, friends ever since meeting in college, convene on Martha's Vineyard. They couldn't have been more different then or even today. Lincoln's a commercial real estate broker. Teddy is a tiny press publisher. And Mickey is a musician beyond his rocking age. But each man holds his own secrets, in addition to the monumental mystery that none of them has ever stopped puzzling over since a Memorial Day weekend right here on the Vineyard in 1971. Now, 45 years later, 3 lives and that of a significant other are put on display, while the distant past confounds the present in a relentless squall of surprise and discovery. Shot through with Russo's trademark comedy and humanity, Chances Are introduces a new level of suspense and menace that will quicken the reader's heartbeat throughout this absorbing saga. And also, I'd like to point out that Chances Are is a really great song. Oh, golly, I forgot I had this. Okay, this is The Secret World of the Sex Witches, an erotic novella by Musadora. Okay, so somebody sent me this because this is going around BookTube, or was until it stopped here. And it's been read by the following people who signed it, which is really cool. I'm supposed to read it and sign it. And it smells really good, too. It smells like, oh, golly, that smells great. What is that stuff? Patchouli. That's what it smells like a little bit. But yeah, this has been read by another bibliophile. Reads, Bad is Rad too. Shannon's Channel. Michael Romeo Talks Books. Flossy at the Grape Jelly Library. Looks like a lot of fun, but I also understand it's really trashy. But it's not very long. I mean, it's a novella. What is it? It's not even 100 pages. Probably knock that out tomorrow afternoon if I picked it up and read it. which I might or might not. I probably should, though. It's been sitting here too long. I need to send it on to the next booktuber who wants to read it. So one of the events that I'm participating in this summer is called Summer of Sport. And I'm not, generally speaking, a sports fan, although I do like baseball. I do enjoy sports literature and sports movies, though. And when it comes to those, my favorite is baseball. And so I've got a list of books about baseball or where baseball's important that I'm going to read for summer of sport. And they're scattered around on different shelves. But one of the books is called If I Never Get Back, which is a great time travel novel about a guy who winds up playing professional baseball in the 1880s, which was a very different game with very different rules then. I've also got a book about the making of the movie Bull Durham. I don't remember the name of the book. And then I'll also be reading The Natural by Bernard Malamud. And then this one I'll probably read. I'm a big fan of Fredrick Backman, and I haven't read any of these, but this is called Beartown, a novel. This is a sports novel. And most of the stuff I've read from him was, you kind of feel good, happy, almost Hallmark type stories, but better. But this one is about hockey, I guess, which I don't know a lot about. Although I've been to some hockey games and they are cool. So there's a quote from the book here. It's only a game. It only resolves tiny insignificant things, such as who gets validation, who gets listened to. It allocates power and draws boundaries and turns some people into stars and others into spectators. That's all. Then there's the summary. A tiny community deep in the forest, Beartown hasn't been the best at anything in a long time. But down by the lake stands an old ice rink. And in that ice rink, Kevin, Amat, Benji, and the rest of the town's junior ice hockey team are about to compete in the national semifinals. And they actually have a shot at winning. All the hopes and dreams of this place now rest on the shoulders of a handful of teenage boys. Under that heavy burden, the semifinal match becomes the catalyst for a violent act that will leave a young girl traumatized and a town in turmoil. This is a story about a town and a game, but even more about loyalty, commitment, and the responsibilities of friendship. The people we disappoint, even though we love them, and the decisions we make every day that come to define us. In this story of a small forest town, Fredrick Backman has found the entire world. And I suspect this is going to be feel good in the same vein as Ted Lasso, which I absolutely adore as a television show. Finally, a show where we're not supposed to be rooting for the anti-hero. So also, I've got Atomic Werewolves and Man-Eating Plants, edited by Robert Deis and Wyatt Doyle. When Men's Adventure Magazines Got Weird is the subtitle of this. And on the back cover it says ghosts, vampires, giant lizards, man-eating trees, the undead, rats, cannibals, killer robots, werewolves, mad scientists, aliens, devil worshippers, homicidal maniacs, and tarantula women. I love it already. So, let me see here. We've got stories from 1953, 1956. Looks like they go up through 1966. I don't know how many of these count as actual science fiction books. So I don't know. The Blonde with the Mysterious Body by Theodore Sturgeon might count. So I don't know if I can get any mileage out of this for Rocket Summer or not. We'll find out. Okay, so here's the end of the shelf. This is shelf number 1, remember? Susan Mallory, The Boardwalk Bookshop. This is another one that I got to read with my daughter here. New York Times best-selling author Susan Mallory wrote this. A story of friends who become family, giving each other the courage to start over. When fate brings 3 strangers to a charming space for lease on the California coast, the Boardwalk Bookshop is born. Whew. Okay, I used to own a bookstore. It's tough business, tough racket. The best thing you can do is get a place where there's really good parking or a lot of foot traffic. Actually, the best thing you can do is to get a place where there's a lot of foot traffic and a lot of parking. But good luck getting something like that at an affordable price. And the price will just eat up your profits. Anyway, I didn't mean to wander off into a tangent. I've got a couple of videos about my experiences owning a bookstore that you can watch separate from here. I'm supposed to be reading the back of the book, sorry. My mind wanders. Part bookstore, part gift shop, part bakery. It's a dream come true for Bree, Mickey, and Ashley. But while their business is thriving, their personal lives are not. Bree, wounded by brilliant but cold parents and her late husband's ultimate betrayal, has sworn to protect her heart at all costs, even from Ashley's brother, a writer and adventurer who has inspired millions. Who's Ashley's brother? Indiana Jones? That'd be cool. He's the first man to see past Bree's barricades to her true self, which terrifies her. Probably too old for her if it's Indiana Jones, though. Mickey has this divorce thing all figured out. Somehow she stayed friends with her ex and her in-laws until a new man changes how everyone looks at her and how she sees herself. Meanwhile, Ashley discovers that the love of her life never intends to marry. Can she live without being a wife if it means she can have everything else she's ever wanted? All right, I'm interested in reading this book because I'm of the firm opinion that basically everything you can do as a married person, you can do as a single person too, okay? If you want to have kids together, you don't have to be married for it. If you want to live together, you don't have to be married for that. If you want to be faithful to each other, you don't have to be married for that. All it does is, if there's a divorce and everybody thinks, oh, no, we'll never get divorced, but somebody's getting divorced out there because look at the statistics. But if you ever do get divorced and you're married, guess who gets involved in determining where the money and all the assets go? The law, the government. I don't want the government involved in my personal life. You know, they're already involved in my financial life, and I'm not real thrilled about that. At sunset every Friday on the beach in front of the Boardwalk Bookshop, the three friends share a champagne toast. As their bond grows closer, they challenge one another to become the best versions of themselves in this heart-achingly beautiful story of friendship, sisterhood, and the transformative power of love. God, I feel like a girl just reading the back of it. But I'm going to read the book, you know. I suppose I'm not supposed to say things like that. But I think sometimes I get special dispensation because of my age and my otherwise harmlessness. At any rate, that's it for bookshelf number 1 on bookcase number 1. I will be back tomorrow with Bookshelf Tour 2024, bookcase 1, bookshelf 2. And I'll probably mess it up in that video too. But until then, I just want to tell y'all, stay sexy. Thanks for watching my little video here. And it's good to be back. I'm going to try to stay back this time. But, you know, no guarantees. It turns out, even if you do everything right, your health can really mess up.